Book of Heaven, Volume 24, Part 1, JMJA, Fiat, in voluntate Dei, Deo gratias. March 19th, 1928, Reluctance in Writing. On her littleness. The return of the writings. How the divine will lives suffocated in the midst of creatures, because it is not known. Grave weight over those who should make it known. How they render themselves robbers. Preparation of great events. My heart and my life, Jesus, here I am again, at the great sacrifice of beginning to write yet another volume. My heart is bleeding from the effort I am making, especially because of the conditions in which my little and poor soul finds itself. My love, if you do not help me, if you do not overwhelm me within you, and make use of your power and of your love over me, I can no longer go on, and I will be incapable of writing a single word. Therefore I pray you that your fiat alone may triumph in me. And if you want me to continue writing, do not abandon me to myself. Continue your office of teacher who dictates to my little soul. If then you want me to write no more, I kiss and adore your divine will, and I thank you. And I pray that I may profit from the many lessons you have given me, that I may ruminate on them continuously, and that I may model my life according to your teachings. Celestial Mamma, Sovereign Queen, extend your blue mantle over me to protect me. Guide my hand while I write, that I may fulfill the divine will. So after I finished writing the 23rd volume, and Jesus alone knows with what hardship and what sacrifice, I was lamenting to blessed Jesus that he had been very sparing with his teachings, and that he had made me toil so much to write a few words. So I was thinking to myself, I have nothing else to write, because if Jesus does not speak, I don't have anything to say. And it seems that Jesus has nothing more to tell me. It is true that the story of his fiat is without limits. It never ends, and even eternally in heaven, it will always have something to say about the eternal volition. And being eternal, it encloses the infinite. And the infinite has infinite things and knowledges to speak about, in such a way as to never end. It is like the sun that as it gives light, has ever more light to give. Its light is never exhausted. But can it not be that for me he may put a limit to his speaking, and that he may make a pause in narrating the long story of his eternal will? Now, while I was thinking of this, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior, in the act of coming out, and told me, "My daughter, how little you are, and it shows how the more you go on, the littler you become. And little as you are, you want to measure our greatness with your littleness, our eternal speaking with your limits in speaking. And little child as you are content with the fact that your Jesus may have nothing more to tell you. You would want to rest and go back to our early amusements, since you have nothing else to do. Poor little one, don't you know that these are brief pauses that your celestial Jesus is allowing for other purposes of his that are not evident to you? And when you least expect it, he will resume his speaking, so important, on the long story of my eternal will. After much struggling and fighting, finally the writings on the divine will arrived here from Messina, and I felt a contentment in me, because finally I had them near me, and I thanked my sweet Jesus from the heart. But Jesus, moving in my interior, making himself seen with an air of sadness, told me, "My daughter, you are content, and I am afflicted." If you knew what enormous weight loomed over those in Messina, for while they had interest in keeping them, they kept them sleeping. They were responsible for a divine will, and in seeing the idleness in which they kept them, I allowed that they be sent back. Now this weight looms over those who had them sent back with so much interest. If they do not occupy themselves with them, they too will be responsible for a divine will. And if you knew what it means to be responsible for a will so holy, it means to keep it hampered while it yearns. It longs to have its shackles removed, and they can be removed by making it known. It is full of life. It flows everywhere. It envelops everything. But this life lives as though suffocated in the midst of creatures, because it is not known. And it moans, for it wants the freedom of its life, and it is forced to keep the rays of its endless light within itself, because it is not known. Now, who is responsible for so many pains of my divine will? Those who must interest themselves with making it known, but do not do it. Has my purpose perhaps been to give much news about my Fiat, without the desired fruit of making it known? No, no, I want the life of what I have said. I want to make the new sun shine. I want the fruit of the many knowledges I have manifested. I want my work to receive its longed-for effect. In fact, how much have I not worked to dispose you to receive knowledges so important about my will? And you yourself, how many sacrifices have you not made? And how many graces have I not given you to have you make them? My work has been long, and when I would see you sacrificed, I would look at the great good that my knowledges about the Fiat would produce in the midst of creatures. The new era that was to arise by virtue of them. And while suffering and sacrificing you, my tender heart would take immense pleasure in seeing, by virtue of this, the good, the peace, the order, the happiness that my other children were to receive. When I do great things in a soul, manifesting important truths and renewals that I want to make in the midst of the human family. It is not for that creature alone that I manifest this, but I want to enclose everyone in that good. Like sun, I want my truths to shine over each one, so that whoever wants it may take their light. Did I not do the same with my celestial mamma? Now, if she had wanted to keep the incarnation of the Word concealed, what good would my coming upon earth have brought? Nothing. I would have departed for heaven without giving my life to anyone. And the sovereign queen, had she concealed me, would have been responsible, and robber of all the good, and of many divine lives of mine that creatures were to receive. In the same way, they will be responsible, and robbers of all the good that the knowledges about my divine fiat will bring, because it will bring many lives of light, of grace, and the immense goods that a divine will contains. Therefore, a grave weight looms over those who should occupy themselves with it, if they continue to keep the sons so beneficial of so many truths about my eternal will idle. And if you, as first, wanted to oppose making known what regards my will, you yourself would be the first robber of so many sons, and of the many goods that creatures are to receive through these knowledges. Then, with a more tender tone, he added, "My daughter, the world is as though burned. There is no one who pours upon them the pure water that can quench their thirst. And if they drink at all, it is the cloudy water of their will that burns them even more. Even the good, the children of my church who try to do good, after doing good, do not feel the happiness of that good, but rather the weight of the good that brings them sadness and tiredness. Do you know why? Because in that very good, the life of my fiat is missing, which contains the divine strength that takes any tiredness away. The light and the heat of my will are missing, that have the virtue of emptying any weight and of sweetening all bitternesses. The beneficial dew of my fiat is missing, that pearls the actions of creatures, and makes them appear so beautiful as to bring them the life of happiness. The ever-springing water of my will is missing, that while fecundating in a divine manner, gives life and quenches their thirst. This is why they drink, but they burn more. See then how necessary it is that its knowledges be known and make their way into the midst of creatures, so as to offer to each one the life of my will, with the font of the goods it contains. All, even those who are said to be more good, feel that something necessary is missing in them. They feel that their works are not complete, and everyone longs for some other good, but they themselves do not know what it is. It is the fullness and the totality of my divine fiat that is missing in their acts, and therefore their works are as though halved, because only with my will and in my will can complete works be done. Therefore it yearns to be known, in order to bring its life and fulfillment to the works of its creatures. More so since I am preparing great events, sorrowful and prosperous, chastisements and graces, unforeseen and unexpected wars, everything in order to dispose them to receive the good of the knowledges of my Fiat. And if they let them sleep without flinging them into the midst of creatures, they will render the events that I am preparing fruitless. What an account will they not have to give me? With these knowledges, I am preparing the renewal and the restoration of the human family. Therefore, on your part, do not place any obstacle, and continue to pray that the kingdom of my divine will may come soon. March 25th, 1928. How the knowledges are many steps that the divine will has taken in order to return into the midst of creatures. How these steps will bring life, light, and sanctity. Sighs of Jesus, for them to be made known. While following the divine Fiat in order to accompany its acts, my poor mind kept thinking about the many truths that my beloved Jesus had told me on the divine will, and with how much love and interest he had manifested them to me. So I was thinking to myself, the first truths he told me seemed flashes of light that unleashed an endless light from within them. Then, little by little, no longer flashes, but fountains of light, and my poor soul would remain under the continuous jet of these fountains of light. Finally, they seemed to be seas of light, of truths, in which I would remain so submerged that my little capacity would not be able to take everything, and would leave many truths in that very sea in which I felt immersed. But it was not given to me to restrict all of that endless light within myself. That converting into words manifested to me the harmony, the beauty, the power of the Supreme Will. And now it seems to me that I am in the light, but the light does not speak. And though I drink seas of light, I am unable to say anything. Now, while I was thinking of this, my always lovable Jesus moved in my interior, and all love told me, "My daughter, you must know that as man withdrew from our will, our paternal goodness withdrew its operating life from the midst of creatures. This is why they have been able to say very little about it, because the sea of the operating light of my divine Fiat was not flowing in them as life, because they themselves, ungratefully, had rejected it. And out of our highest goodness, we left to them the good of being able to follow the orders of our will, not the life in which they could hope for their salvation. But without it, there is neither salvation nor sanctity. But our paternal goodness, our will and our love, desired, longed for, strongly yearned for its return as operating life into the midst of creatures. we saw that they could not reach the perfect purpose of creation, nor form the image wanted by us, completely in our likeness, just as we created them, without the operating life of our Fiat. Because our Fiat is the prime act of the creature, and if it is missing in her, she remains disordered, counterfeit, because she lacks the prime act of her existence. Now you must know that after many centuries of hidden sighs, our Supreme Being gushed out more intensely with love, more than in the very creation and redemption. As our love, gushing out, overflowed from us, we felt the need of love to take the first steps toward the creature. So, as I began to manifest to you the first truths about my divine will, I pushed it strongly to take the first steps into the midst of creatures. And I centralized these steps in you by means of its knowledges. And as I saw that you would place your steps in those of the divine Fiat, I rejoiced. I made feast, and manifesting to you more truths about it, I would push it to take yet more steps. Therefore, as many truths as I have told you about my will, so many are the steps that I made my Fiat take in order to make it return as operating life into the midst of creatures. This is why I have told you so many of them, that one can say that heaven and earth are filled with the steps of the knowledges about my will, and uniting together, they form the sea of light in your soul that wants to overflow from within you to make its way into the midst of creatures. These steps will be multiplied according to how much the truths about my will be recognized, because I never manifest a truth, if not when I want to give it as gift, giving the life and the good it contains. Therefore, until my divine will is known, with all of its knowledges, its steps will be hampered, and the good it wants to do to creatures suspended. If you knew how painful it is to be able to do good, placing oneself in the act of doing it, and having to keep it suspended because it is not known, waiting and longing for it to be made known, so as to be relieved of the weight of the good that one wants to give. Oh, how you would hasten to make known all the steps of my Fiat. More so, since they are steps that will bring not remedies, helps, or medicines, but fullness of life, of light, of sanctity, and totality of goods. And my love, gushing out and flooding the whole world, will restore the order of creation and the dominion of my will in the midst of the human family. After this, my sweet Jesus made himself seen, with many rays of light coming out from within his divine heart. Each knowledge about the divine will was impressed at the point from which the rays started, in such a way as to form the most beautiful crown of light around that divine heart. And my beloved Jesus added, "My daughter, look what a beautiful crown of glory and of light my divine heart possesses. A more beautiful and refulgent crown it could not possess. These rays are all the knowledges about my will. However, these rays are hampered. They cannot extend, because its knowledges are not known. Therefore they cannot extend and expand so as to fill the whole earth with light. It happens as it would to the sun if its rays, that start from the center of its sphere, were forced to remain in the air, without being able to extend so as to touch the earth and invest it with its light and heat. Unable to extend its rays, the sun would not be able to give the effects that its light contains, nor could the earth receive them. There would be a certain distance between the earth and the light of the sun, and this distance would prevent the sun from doing good to the earth, and the earth would be sterile and infertile. Such are the knowledges about my Fiat. If they are not made known, its rays cannot extend and take souls as though in their hands, so as to warm them, remove from them the torpor of the human will, mold them anew, transform them again in the life that my Fiat wants to infuse in them. Because these knowledges are and contain the new creation of transforming the creature as he came out of our creative hands. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 24, Part 1. Fiat.